So if you missed Tuesday's lesson, that means you weren't able to complete the little assignment that we needed to complete at the end that I need for some data. So I would love for you, please, to go through this lesson. I'm going to do it with you in about the same amount of time that it took my class when we did it live. During today's lesson, I will complete a mini lesson problem, be able to find the probability of simple events, and then complete a probability quiz just to kind of see what you learned from this lesson. So our mini lesson was how to simplify a fraction. And when we simplify a fraction, what we're trying to do is to get it into lowest terms. And if I want to put 10/12 into lowest terms, I have to think about what is the biggest number that goes into both 10 and 12. And this is a pretty simple one. So the greatest common factor, or the biggest factor that these two have in common, is 2. So I do 10 divided by 2 and I get 5. I do 12 divided by 2 and I get 6. So our greatest common factor is 2, and our fraction reduces to 5/6. So if you spin a teacher on her head, what are the odds that she'll land face down? Is it impossible? Unlikely? Is there a 50-50 chance? Is it likely, or is it certain? Well, maybe it's not a good idea to spin your teacher, so let's spin a coin. If we spin a coin, what are the chances it will turn up heads when it falls? Is it impossible? Is it unlikely? Is there a 50-50 chance? Is it likely, or is it certain? So I think we can kind of look at this and say it's probably a 50-50 chance. Because when we do simple probability, we think about all of the things that could happen. So 2 things could happen, right? We could get heads or we could get tails. So we put the 2 in the denominator, and then we are looking for heads, and there is 1 head. So we're going to say there is a 1 out of 2 chance or probability that this could turn up heads when it falls, and we can also call that a 50-50 chance, 50%. So let's look at a spinner. I have a spinner here with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 pieces on my spinner, and I would like to know, if we spin this spinner, what is the probability it will land on red? Well, I have to make my fraction first. I think about all the possibilities. There are 6 possibilities. How many of them are red? 1 is red, so there is a 1/6 chance. Now let's think about yellow. Again, there are 6 pieces, so I know that my denominator is 6. It's out of how many possibilities, and I know that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them are yellow. So my chances of getting yellow are a lot greater, and the probability is 5 out of 6. How about blue? Well, there are no blue pie wedges on here, so there is a 0 chance out of 6. How about red and yellow? If I spin this spinner once, can I get a red and a yellow? Nope, impossible. 0 out of 6. I can't get 2 different colors on one spin. And then how about red or yellow? If I spin, could I get a red or a yellow? There's a 100% chance. A 100% chance that I would get red or yellow. Now let's think about how we do these compound probabilities. The chances of getting red, we said, were 1 out of 6. The chance of getting yellow, or the probability of spinning and landing on yellow, is 5 out of 6. When I add those 2 probabilities together, notice I get 5 plus 1 is 6/6. That's why we say that a 1 is a certain probability. It is certain that we will get red or yellow. And then when I change that to a percentage, I think about my number 1. and I want to move the decimal point over 2 places to make it into a percent. So 1 twice, I fill in 2 zeros, that's where I get the 100%. Okay, so certain is 1 or 100%. 50-50 chance would be 50% chance. And that's a 1 out of 2 chance. Impossible, 0. 0%. 0 would be my fraction, which isn't a fraction. All right, how about all these in-betweens? So now let's add some percentages to these fractions, and then we're going to figure out how would we describe it in words. Okay, so let's do 1/6. Do you remember how to do 1/6 as a percentage or as a decimal? Let's change it to a decimal. 1 divided by 6 gives me, 1 divided by 6 gives me a decimal. I'm trying to change my, won't let me change my calculator back to a standard calculator. So let's just do 1 divided by 6. I get a 0.166 chance. Let's call that 0.17. So this would be 0.17. If I want to change that into a percentage, I want to move my decimal point over 2 places. So I get 17%. So it's always good and helpful. Take a fraction, change it into a decimal, then find the percent. All right, 5 divided by 6 gives me 0.83. When I move that decimal point over 2 places, I get 83%. Of course, 0 divided by 6 would be 0 and 0%. And then same thing with red and yellow. 0 divided by 6 is 0. 0. Sorry, this is a little tight. All right, now let's fill in the rest of our chart here, because we have to know when would we say something's unlikely or very highly unlikely. And if you notice, they kind of divided this into quarters. So I'm going to say that if it's between 25% and 50%, it's somewhere in between unlikely, and then of course this would be 50-50. If it's under 25%, let's call it highly unlikely, all the way to 0. Okay, and then we can do the same thing with this. This would be 75%. So if it's somewhere in between 75 and 100%, we can call that highly unlikely. And if it's somewhere between 50 and 75%, we can just call that it's likely to happen. Okay, so when we look at red, we see red is 17%. Red falls in between here, so it's highly unlikely. I'm just going to abbreviate. Yellow is 83%. That's somewhere in here, so I know that's highly likely. Blue is impossible. Red and yellow is impossible, and red or yellow is certain. That will absolutely happen. Okay, let's review this one more time. Okay, I have a spinner, and I know that there are 10 odd numbers and there are 10 even numbers on my spinner. There are a total of 20 pies on my spinner, 20 numbers. Okay, so what am I going to do? I am going to figure out what would the probability be that it would land on an odd number. Well, first I'm going to think how many numbers are there all together. That goes on the bottom. How many are odd? 10. That goes on the top. I can divide that. I'll get 0.5, move my decimal point over twice, 50%. Let's do not an odd number. Well, I know if they're not odd, they're even. So if I want to do the probability of an even number, I think how many are there all together? There's 20 numbers. How many are even? 10, right? Because if you're not odd, you're even. So we're doing the even numbers. And then I know 10 divided by 20 is 0.5. Move the decimal point over twice. I'm at 50%. That one was easy. They're both 50-50 chance. So we could just say my odds are even. I have an even chance or 50-50 chance. You could put whatever you want there. I don't care. All right, last one. The die has the numbers 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12 on it. If we roll it, what is the probability it will land on a number less than 8? Well, there's 3 numbers less than 8. So there's 6 numbers altogether. 3 are less than 8. It's 1/2. So that's 50-50 chance. How about a number greater than 2? Well, all of these are greater than 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know there's 6 altogether. I know that there's 5 that are greater than 2. So I have a 5/6 chance when I divide that on my calculator. 5 divided by 6. I get that 0.833 again. When I move that decimal point over 2 places, I get 83%. I know if it's between 75 and 100, it's highly likely. So I'm going to call that highly likely, and the number less than 8 is a 50-50 chance. So you're going to go to this quiz. Here is the link. Please click on that link, take that quiz, and go through the boards. I allowed all the students to go through the boards and see how to do them. Remember, you're going to divide fractions to make decimals and then turn them into percents.